And it's okay that you can't. That's why you work towards it. That's why you go through these stages of growth. That's why you have to experience these stages of stress to be able to build the resilience to have that $1 million business. You can't skip steps because then you don't have the skills enough to be able to manage something like that. And then guess what? Everything blows up in your face. And the only real bottleneck in your business that will forever be there is yourself. And so if you're not good, the business is not good. Hey guys, welcome back. My name is Ricardo Vargas, and this is the journey from 0 to $1 million and beyond, where I take my experiences, my life lessons, and the mistakes I make along the way and share them with you guys so you don't make the same mistakes as me. And today we'll be looking at the lessons that I've learned so far in Q2. And although I'm always experiencing and learning a lot of different things, I want to give you guys 3 of the main ones that have impacted me greatly so far and that have changed the way I think and the way I do business. And these 3 things are patience, the 3 stages of stress, and the 3 types of capacity. So let's get right into it. So first of all, patience. What does this mean? I mean patience in the way of doing the boring work that is necessary in order to get to the next stage of growth in the business. Now, boring work might look different depending on what kind of business you're in, but for me, it would just be, doing the daily tasks, doing the actual labor, doing the actual work outside, coming home and doing all the admin work, doing all the estimates, doing all the invoices. All of this is very, very boring work that can easily get overlooked, and you might want to skip at times because of how monotonous and annoying it might be. But this work is what's necessary in order to further the business. And I've talked to many different business owners that are either above me or, at the same experience level as me. And they've all said the same thing. Be patient, do the boring work, and make sure you do it good, because how you do this boring work is how you're gonna do the great work and the important work that's gonna drive the business forward. And usually for my industry, for the lawn care industry, these couple months are the ones where you make the most profit, but it's also the months where demand goes down. So really what you're left doing is just recurring work that is essentially the same every single week. And so you do get bored, it's the same thing, and eventually it just falls under a routine, right? You might not think of it as much, but this is exactly what builds a great business. Great businesses, they're mostly repetitive, boring work. And so learning the patience aspect of this is very, very important, because usually what business owners do is they start looking at the next shiny object and going for that shiny object. And then since that's not what they're specialized in, it usually doesn't work out for them. And then they either run out of work, they run out of money trying to go for that shiny object, and then they fail, they quit. Or instead of quitting, they go back to just being themselves, a solo operator. And so at this stage, patience is number 1, and it's what's gonna drive me forward into the next stage. And so patience is a great lesson that I've learned thus far. Now, the second lesson would be the 3 stages of stress. Now, I'm gonna divide these 3 stages into revenue categories, because it varies a lot when you start having employees and when you start delegating out work than when you're just by yourself, right? So the first stage of stress, I would say, would be when you're starting up, when you're between $0 to $200,000 in annual revenue. Now, this is a lot of physical stress. This is you out there doing the work, coming home, doing more work. These are the 12, 16-hour day that are necessary in order to get the business off the ground. You're gonna find yourself just very tired, coming home, crashing, getting up, dreading to go back to work, dreading to do this. And it's really gonna weed out those people that are just here for the excitement, right? If you're going into business just because it's exciting to say that you're in business or that you're a business owner, then this first part is where you're gonna get weeded out and you're gonna probably go back or quit. Because although it is very exciting, it's not meant for everybody. Not everybody's meant to go through this, and not everybody's gonna survive this. There's only 2 types of people that are gonna survive this stage. Either the ones that are happy with just working by themselves and make it very, very profitable for themselves, or 2, the people who want to grow, people who have a long-term vision. And whether you're number 1 or 2, it's completely fine. It's really up to whatever your dreams and your goals are. If you just want to work for yourself for however many years, completely fine. You're honestly gonna make more money than the people who are trying to grow, because growth sucks cash. And so those people that are growing their business, getting bigger and starting to hire employees and getting more assets, those people are gonna have less money and they're gonna be less profitable than those people that are in business for themselves, a solo operator. So it really just depends what you want out of your life and what your goals are, and either one are completely fine. But you have to understand that both of these types of people both are going to go under physical stress. And it's really important to know this beforehand so that it doesn't catch you by surprise. Now, the next stage of stress would be between $200,000 and $800,000 in annual revenue. This would be when you start delegating and when you start stepping out of the daily operations. And a lot of this, I would say it's emotional stress, because now you're gonna have to trust other people to do the work that you're doing, or at the very least do a fraction of the work that you're doing. And you're gonna have to start trusting people in taking over admin work, right? Like picking up the phone, doing emails, checking in on customers. You're gonna have to trust people on communicating properly with the customer and representing your brand for what it stands for. And that takes a heavy emotional toll on you, because the moment something goes wrong, you feel like you made a wrong decision, which you did. The only person that you can ever blame for another employee's action is yourself, because you hired that person and you trusted that person. So therefore, now you know that that person is not trustworthy. Now, it does take an emotional toll, and a lot of people either quit or go crazy in this part, because this is where emotions are tested. And this is where the emotional stable people will make it through and will understand that this, again, is just part of the process. And those who don't will either quit, go bankrupt, or downsize and go back to being a solo operator. And whether you're any of these people, again, your choices, your life, completely fine with what you choose, but you have to understand the consequences that come with it. And again, this is a lot of emotional stress because you have to stay very, very disciplined. Shiny object syndrome is not even in the picture. You have a tunnel vision, you have a goal that you're going towards, and you just can't let your emotions make the decisions for you. Because if you do, something bad will happen, because there is no place for emotions in business. I made a video about this before. Emotions in business are only internal, never external. Because the moment your employees or people who look up to you within the organization see that you're a very, very emotional person, well, guess what? They're gonna think you're unstable, they're gonna think you're not reliable, and they're gonna think less of you, because you are the leader. You're supposed to be leadership, and leadership does not show any weakness. And by you being emotional, you acting out of character, and you letting emotions get in the way, you're showing that you're not a proper leader. And so going into this stage of growth, knowing that you're gonna be under emotional distress and probably physical stress too, you just have to be ready for it and you have to prepare for it, because it's gonna happen. And obviously you're gonna have different mistakes along the way, and that's okay. But train your team for it. Make sure you're taking the time necessary in order for all the growth and all the goals to be hit without much emotional distress. And understand that sometimes things just don't go the way you want them to, and that's completely fine. It may be your fault, maybe outside of your control, but it's okay. Nothing in business is worth dying for, and nothing in business is honestly worth quitting for, unless you're in the biggest debt hole in the world. But even then, sometimes quitting is not the option. So understand, emotional stress comes between $200,000 and $800,000 in annual revenue. So be ready for it. Now, the last stage of stress, I would say, comes right after $800,000 in annual revenue, because this is when you stop working inside of the business and you start working on the business, right? You start focusing on high level tasks, like, for example, copying and pasting your current business model, maybe a second location. Maybe now you're starting to see where you can distribute money, or if you just want to keep on growing this. It's a lot of mental work and a lot of mental decisions on what to do. You're out of daily operations, you're out of the admin work, and now you become a professional decision maker. It's literally all a mental game. It's figuring out, stop, and thinking which decisions are the best for the business, for your employees, and everybody within the organization. And so you become a trainer of managers, you become a trainer of future leaderships, and maybe you only talk to high value clients. At this point, you've mastered the physical stress. You've mastered your emotions, because otherwise you wouldn't be able to get there. And now all the stress that you're gonna have is mental, because every day something wrong is gonna happen. It's just a guarantee, right? The more employees you have, the more likely something is to go wrong. And now you're more focused on the systems in the business to fully refine and iron out those little creases in the business that are making those mistakes. And so you become a professional decision maker and a professional leader, because now all the managers are looking up to you. All the managers are literally copies of you. However those managers turn out is how your employees are going to turn out. So you start thinking of different training regimens, you start thinking of different policies, different rules that you're going to make, and really refining all the systems in your business to, again, reach that next stage of growth. And so those are the 3 main stages of stress that I found and learned as I'm going through business. Now, moving on, we have the 3 different types of capacity. And some of this and the stages of stress might intertwine a little bit here because, again, stress is everywhere in business. If you're going into business because you think it's stress-free, you're wrong. There's stress everywhere, but 3 main stages of capacity really just involve labor capacity, asset capacity, and personal capacity. So let's go through them. So first off, labor capacity. Labor capacity just essentially means how much work can you and your team take on before you have to hire another person, right? And you can mainly measure this in the amount of hours needed to complete a job and the amount of jobs you have per week or per month if you want to look at it in the long term. Let's say, for example, you have a 2-man crews, right? And these crews out of a 40-day week, each person can really realistically get 30 hours worth of work in 1 week. That's 75%. Pretty standard. 30 hours times 2 is 60. That means you have 60 real work hours out of 80 hours in a week. If you schedule your jobs accordingly, according to the amount of hours, you'll see that you can only get so many jobs done in a week before you go over those 60 hours. And if you go over those 60 budgeted hours of work, then guess what? Your guys might go overtime, or they might do a little over 8 hours, or they might just take longer. And it's really up to the estimator's responsibility to know how long a job is going to take and how much it should be charged. Really figuring out your labor capacity before taking the next step towards growth is important because, one, you don't want to overhire because then you're going to have to lay off a bunch of people and you just wasted a bunch of money in training new employees. And you don't want to underhire because now there's a bunch of work and there's a bunch of money that you could be making, but you're not because you didn't, again, allocate the amount of hours worth of work necessary. And so it's important to really monitor that on a daily basis so you know when to hire, when to fire, and when to do it all over again so you can keep on growing at the pace that you feel comfortable with. The second type of capacity would be the asset capacity. Now, again, depending on what kind of business you're in, if you're in a home service business like I am, this asset capacity might be your equipment and your trucks, right? So how much equipment or trucks do you have before you need to buy another one, right? So for example, again, the 2-man crew example. If you have a 2-man crew in 1 truck, again, how much work or how much revenue can you produce within just that truck? What's 1 truck's worth of revenue a month? That means that if you have those 2 people in 1 truck doing 60 hours worth of work in 1 week, and you times that by your hourly rate. Let's just say your hourly rate is $70. You times 60 hours times your hourly rate of $70, you get $4,200. That's how much revenue per truck you're creating every single week. Now you times that by 4 and you get $16,800. That's how much revenue is created per truck. And so now if you say, hey, I want to grow to $30,000 in recurring revenue per month, what do I do? When do I need to buy trucks? You can use this number to know that, hey, I can only max make $16,800 worth of revenue. If I go over that, that means that my guys are going overtime. My guys are getting exhausted. I'm making them work too much. Eventually they're gonna get burnt out. And if they get burnt out, most likely gonna quit, no matter how much money you're paying. And so if you wanna have a sustainable workforce, understanding these numbers and understanding when the right time is will help you grow at a more sustainable and profitable way while maintaining your employees and not having so much employee churn. So third, and I think the most important capacity metric would be your personal capacity. How much work, how much growth can you take before you go crazy? And this is very important because this is not talked about anywhere near enough. And honestly, I personally went through this. We were growing pretty fast in these past couple months. And there was a time where, I would come home literally drained out of my mind, come on the computer, finish all the admin work, and it would just be like a zombie. Literally just shower and go to sleep, not even eat. And you have to take care of yourself because then it just starts bleeding into other parts of your life. And then you start being grumpy, you start being a person that no one likes being around. And that's not right, and that's not good. And honestly, personal capacity is one of the main reasons why a lot of business owners quit and why a lot of people don't make it. And it's really important to measure how much can you take and not go over that, Don't think of yourself as this great person that can just take on $1 million business from one day to the next, because you can't. It's so much pressure, it's so much responsibility, and it's okay that you can't. That's why you work towards it. That's why you go through these stages of growth. That's why you have to experience these stages of stress to be able to build the resilience to have that $1 million business. You can't skip steps because then you don't have the skills enough to be able to manage something like that. And then guess what? Everything blows up in your face. And the only real bottleneck in your business that will forever be there is yourself. And so if you're not good, the business is not good. And again, not even talking about business, putting everything to the side, business related. You as a person, you have to look out for yourself, because if you're not good, most likely your health is not good, your relationships are not good, your personal hygiene is not good. So you have to check yourself and make time to take care of yourself. Because at the end of the day, you went into business to have a better life. You went into business because you wanted freedom, because you wanted to be a little healthier, because you wanted the ability to do what you want when you want. And if you lose yourself in the process of making that happen, then what's it all worth? It's worth nothing, because you lost yourself. And then you lost relationships, you lost friends, you lost family, you lost all connections, you lost health. It's not worth it. It's just not worth it. And I think more people should really shine light into this, because it's not talked about enough, like I said. And I feel like personal capacity is one of the most important metrics that you should think about on the daily. Just knowing how much you can take on before things go wrong is really important. And it really varies between person to person, right? The more experience you have, obviously, the more you can take. The less experience you have, the less you can take, so on and so forth. That's why you have to get the reps in order to increase your personal capacity. And so that's about it. That's all I got for right now, just those 3 main lessons. Stay tuned. We do have a special guest coming in on the next episode, so make sure you're here for that. It's pretty, very, very interesting. And again, as always, until next time, see you guys.